She says, "Hi," I think. "Oh, wow." I said, "Wow, hi." She says, "Hi, Michael." Al Pacino went from being a movie star to being broke in a day when his trusted moneyman stole $50 million in a huge scam. At age 84, he spends $400,000 a year on gardening for empty homes, takes on embarrassing parts just to stay alive, and supports a 29-year-old girlfriend who's seeing other men. The actor who played the Godfather even passed out during COVID, and doctors worked hard to bring him back to life. This is the shocking true story of how a famous Hollywood star fell from grace. Alfredo James Pacino was born at home in East Harlem, New York City on April 25, 1940. He is known as Al Pacino. Rose Pacino and Salvatore Pacino were his parents, and they were both from Sicily. His dad moved to the United States from San Fratello, Sicily, and his mom's family came from Corleone. That name became famous in The Godfather, but for Pacino it was just a part of his past. His parents split up when he was only 2 years old. They had to start over in the South Bronx after his father went to California to work as a salesman. It was hard to live. His mother moved them in with her parents, and his grandparents, Kate and James Gherardi, raised him there. His strong grandma ran the household and kept the family together. Every day was hard when you were growing up in the Bronx. Pacino got into fights, skipped school, and sometimes even stole food when money was tight. At first he wanted to be a baseball player, but as time went on, movies became his escape. Through his teens, all he wanted to do was play. His mother took him to the theater a lot. He was never good at school. He went to Herman Ritter Junior High and then the High School of Performing Arts, but school didn't seem like a way to help him get ahead. The only area he did well in was English. He quit school when he was 17. His mother was very sad. She wanted him to have a stable job that would let him take care of himself. Their fights got worse when he refused. He finally left home and had to take care of himself. He had some of the worst years of his life after that. He was a mailman, a cleaner, a busboy, and a postal clerk, among other jobs. He slept on the streets or on friends' beds some nights because he had nowhere else to go. He also joined the wrong group of people. He began smoking and drinking when he was 9 years old. He started smoking pot when he was 13. A lot of his best friends became addicted to drugs, and 3 of them died from heroin abuse. Pacino knew what would happen if he didn't pay attention. He was set on not ending up the same way. He tried out for the Actors Studio several times but was turned down each time. He didn't give up. Instead, he joined HB Studio and met Charlie Lawton there. He learned how to do method acting from Lawton, which took a lot of mental commitment. Pacino worked on his skill day and night, giving it everything he had. But they still had trouble with money. One night he slept on the stage of the theater where he was practicing. Then bad things happened in 1962. His mom took too many drugs and died when she was 43 years old. It wasn't long after that that his grandpa also died. The losses were terrible. It was hard for Pacino to stay afloat after he got depressed. He sometimes didn't have a place to live and had to borrow money just to eat. He didn't want to give up his dream though. He finally got into the Actors Studio when he was 23 years old. Lee Strasberg, who taught him, is one of the most important acting teachers in history. Strasberg taught him to believe in himself and give every part real feeling. It took Pacino a long time to find his place, but he did. Things got better for him in 1968. He got a part in the off-Broadway play The Indian Wants the Bronx, which got the interest of movie directors and reviewers. The show won him an Obie Award and opened doors that didn't seem possible before. After years of hard work, people were finally taking notice of him. I knew I was this vagabond kid, but when the chance came, all I had to do was be there. Pacino once said about his past, "Every hard time, every failure, and every night spent on the streets had led him to this point." Al Pacino got his start in Hollywood with a small but important part in the 1969 movie Me, Natalie. Fred co-directed the movie, which stars Patty Duke as a young woman in Greenwich Village who was trying to make her way through life. Pacino only had a small part in the movie, but it was his first movie role. But no one knew who he was at the time. He lived in Greenwich Village and studied acting with Charlie Lawton at the Herbert Berghof studio. He loved theater so much that he won a Tony Award earlier that year for his role in Does a Tiger Wear a Necktie? He really cared about playing, as shown by how well he did in that play. But Hollywood was not like that. Me, Natalie wasn't a huge hit, but it did make $1.9 million in box office receipts in the USS and Canada. Even more important, it was Pacino's first time being in front of a film camera. It was a small step, but it was important. In 1971, 2 years later, he got his first lead part in The Panic in Needle Park. The task at hand was much tougher. The movie, which was directed by Jerry Schussberg, showed drug abuse in New York City in a dark and honest way. Pacino played Bobby, a small-time con artist whose life gets out of hand. Kitty Wynn played Helen, Bobby's girlfriend. Based on a book by James Mills, the story was written by Joan Didion and John Gregory Dunn. It didn't lie about anything. It was brutally honest about how bad drug abuse really is. Page gave Bobby a raw energy that made him both charming and deeply troubled. Critics said that his performance was one of the most true-to-life depictions of addiction they had ever seen on film. The movie didn't do well at the box office, but it became a fan favorite. Though Kitty Wynn won Best Actress at Cannes, Al Pacino's work really stood out. Francis Ford Coppola, a director whose life would never be the same, saw it and wanted to know more. The Godfather 1972, which Coppola was making, was coming together. It was important to Paramount that the actor play Michael Corleone be well known. They thought about Robert Redford and Jack Nicholson, but Coppola saw something in Pacino that no one else did. They wanted James Caan because they thought Pacino was too short and not well known enough. Coppola wouldn't give up. He thought Pacino had the quiet energy Michael needed to go from being an unwilling outsider to a cruel crime boss. The first week of shooting was very hard for Pacino. He almost lost the part. The executives were not pleased. They believed that he was not active enough in his role. She had to fight to keep him. Then there was the scene where Michael kills Sollozzo and McCluskey in the restaurant. It was the big moment. Everything changed because of how well Pacino played that part. The company finally got it, just like Coppola had from the start. The Godfather became a classic as soon as it came out on March 15, 1972. Around the world, it made more than $250 million on a budget of $6 million. Pacino's act will be remembered forever. Along with James Caan and Robert Duvall, he was up for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Even though he didn't win, just being nominated showed that he wasn't just a theater character. He was famous in Hollywood. He came back for The Godfather Part 2, 1974, which came out 2 years later. This time the movie told two stories: Michael Corleone's rise to power in the present and Robert De Niro's early life as Vito Corleone, Michael's father. Michael was no longer a stranger, he was now the family's leader, and Pacino's acting showed how becoming powerful had changed him. He was colder, meaner, and more alone. Some reviewers said it was one of the best playing jobs ever. Best Picture was one of 6 Oscars the movie won. Art Carney beat out Pacino for the Best Actor award. Still, he won the BAFTA for Best Actor, which showed that people all over the world knew how talented he was. Pacino also acted in Serpico 1973, which came out between the Godfather movies. It was based on the true story of NYPD officer Frank Serpico, who revealed corruption in the force. It was directed by Sidney Lumet. Pacino was able to show a different side of his playing in this part. He wasn't pretending to be a robber or a bad guy. He played a man who was up against a crooked system. His show was very exciting. Because he had put so much into the part, the anger and frustration he showed on screen felt real. He was again nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars. Then there was Dog Day Afternoon 1975, which was also directed by Sidney Lumet. In this movie, Pacino played Sonny Wurtzik, a guy who robs a bank to pay for surgery to change his partner's gender. The story was based on real events, and Pacino played the part with a lot of energy and feeling. When he walked out of the bank and started yelling "Attica" at the cops, referring to the 1971 Attica jail riots, it was one of the most famous scenes in the movie. That scene was made up on the spot. The movie did well at the box office and with critics, and Pacino was nominated for another Oscar. In the early 1970s, Al Pacino was the biggest star in Hollywood. He became one of the most recognized players in the business with roles in The Godfather, Serpico, and Dog Day Afternoon. Things began to go wrong in the late 1970s, though. In 1977, he made his first big mistake with Bobby Deerfield. Pollock directed the Love movie, which was meant to show a different side of Pacino. Instead, it turned out to be one of his worst mistakes. People who saw it thought it was slow and boring. A few people even booed at showings. Bad things were said about it too. One review called it trash that should have been sent straight to video, which was especially harsh since home video wasn't even around yet. In 1980, he was still having problems with cruising. The movie, which was directed by William Friedkin, was about a cop who went undercover to find a serial killer in New York's secret gay leather scene. From the beginning, it got a lot of negative feedback. While the movie was being made, activists protested by blowing air horns, stumbling over mirrors to ruin shots, and making so much noise that a lot of the speech had to be re-recorded. Trouble only got worse when the movie came out in theaters. Many people thought it was unfair. People were upset that the story didn't have a clear ending. It was called unclear and vague by critics. Years later, in his book Sonny Boy, which came out in 2024, Pacino said he felt bad about making the movie and wouldn't support it. He was having trouble with his job, but in 1983 he came back in a way that only a few actors have ever done. Scarface did something aggressive, out of control, and different from anything he had ever done before. It was a huge risk to play Tony Montana. Sidney Lumet was supposed to direct, but he quit because he didn't agree with the script. Oliver Stone wrote the script while he was having problems with cocaine abuse, which made the movie even more intense. When it came out, reviewers didn't like it. To a lot of people, it was too aggressive and over the top, but the crowd didn't react the same way. A lot of people were involved with Tony Montana's rise and fall. With a $25 million budget, the movie made $66 million around the world. Over time, it turned into a big deal in culture. People loved the line, "Say hello to my little friend." Hip-hop artists liked the movie, and its effects went beyond Hollywood. Pacino had shown once more why he was one of the best. Things went badly again, just as it looked like his job was getting better. Revolution, which came out in 1985, was a film about the American Revolution. It took $28 million to make, but only brought in $358,574. People didn't like it. A lot of people made fun of Pacino's accent. People didn't like the movie at all, so he left Hollywood for 4 years. In 1989, he came back with Sea of Love, a solid hit that reminded people of how good he was, but his real return didn't happen until 1992. Everything changed when Scent of a Woman came out. With direction by Martin Brest, it was about Frank Slade, a blind and angry ex-army officer who becomes close with a young student. The part was tricky. Slade was angry and hard to predict, but he was also kind in his own way. The performance led up to an impactful speech in court that stunned the crowd. Pacino had been nominated 8 times for an Oscar but never won. He finally won the Academy Award for Best Actor this time. It made $134.1 million around the world on a budget of $31 million, and it won several Golden Globes. He was one of the most famous artists in the world for decades. But behind all the fame, he was going down a path that would ruin his finances and cost him everything. He became involved in a Ponzi scheme and lost $50 million. He also spent millions on things he didn't use and had to do things he never thought he would do just to stay alive. The person Pacino trusted with his money betrayed him the most. He was a financial advisor for some of Hollywood's biggest stars and took care of their money. Pacino thought that his money was safe. He let Starr handle all of his money on his own. He even gave him permission to sign checks for him. Starr put on the act that everything was okay for years. He was actually running a Ponzi scheme by moving money between accounts and taking advantage of famous funds for his own gain. When the truth came out in 2010, Pacino had lost all of his money. Starr was found guilty that same year. He was given a jail term of 7.5 years, but that didn't make Pacino rich again. After the fact, the Star wrote about the moment he understood what had happened. He had $50 million one day. He had nothing the next day. His money was lost in more than one way, not just the Ponzi scheme. Pacino was spending so much money that not even his millions could keep up. He paid $400,000 a year to have the yard taken care of on a house he never lived in. Taking inflation into account, that amount would be about $900,000 now. He also found out that he was paying for 16 cars. Even though he only had 2 cars, he had 23 cell phone lines that were going. He didn't understand why these charges kept coming up. He had never paid attention to his money. He worked on his acting and let other people handle the money. He thought the money he was making would cover everything. His huge paychecks, $10 million per movie, were actually being eaten away by taxes, lawyer fees, and agent payments. His other habit was to rent homes instead of buying them. He lived in fancy homes and took expensive trips that cost a lot of money. He spent a lot of money on just one trip to Europe. He used a private Gulfstream jet to take people places and rented out a full floor at the Dorchester Hotel in London. Things looked good until all of a sudden they weren't. He had lost all of his money and had to move quickly. Fans were shocked when they saw him in that part. In 2011, he was in the comedy Jack and Jill with Adam Sandler. The movie made $149 million around the world, but reviewers were very harsh on it. The review site Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 3% grade. The way Pacino played himself was so over the top that it won him 2 Razzie Awards for Worst Supporting Actor and Worst Screen Couple. Fans were interested in why he played the part. It was easy to figure out he was poor. It was easy for him to get money from Jack and Jill. He was said to have made $5 million from the movie. It saved my life. It didn't make him rich again, but it kept him afloat. Even though it got bad reviews, the movie opened up more doors. Brands asked him to be in ads. Studios gave him new parts. He slowly started getting his earnings back on track. He knew that Jack and Jill wasn't his proudest moment, but he didn't feel bad about it. He even said it was great to work with Adam Sandler. Al Pacino has 4 kids from 3 different marriages, but he has never been married. Julie Marie, his oldest child, was born on October 16, 1989. Jan Tarrant, her mother and an acting coach, dated Pacino for a short time before they broke up. Later in 2001, Pacino had twins named Anton and Olivia Rose. This was more than 10 years after the first child. Beverly D'Angelo, their mother, was married to Pacino for 6 years from 1997 to 2003. Then in 2023, something strange took place. Pacino had his 4th child when he was 83 years old. Romeo was born on June 15, 2023, to his girlfriend, film director Noor Alfallah. It's 54 years since Alfallah's birth. When they started dating in April 2022, it became a big deal very quickly. Pacino was tied to a number of well-known women over the years, including his godfather, Diane Keaton, as a co-star. Before stopping after The Godfather Part 3, they were together on and off for years. Keaton once said she was truly in love with Pacino and that he was the most interesting man she had ever met. In the end, Pacino dated Argentine actress Lucilla Pollack for 10 years.
He had relationships with Tuesday Weld, Martha Keller, and other women before that. Even with all of these relationships, Pacino never thought that marriage would work for him. He said it didn't feel right to him at one point. But being a dad was different. He was always proud to be a dad, even though it wasn't easy for him to balance being a dad with his job. He wrote in his autobiography Sonny Boy that he hadn't always given his kids the care they needed as they were growing up. Al Pacino has been through things that look and feel like they belong in one of his movies. Some of them were scary. Some made him different for good. All of them show a part of his life that most people don't see. Not long after The Godfather made him famous in the 1970s, something happened that could have turned out very differently. One night Pacino was too drunk to drive home after drinking for hours with Gene Hackman's brother Richard Hackman. A fan woman gave him a ride. He didn't think twice in his state. He got in. Things didn't seem strange at first. He then saw that they weren't going in the right way. He wanted to know where they were going. "I'm kidnapping you," she said, which made him feel cold. Even though the booze was making him lose his focus, instinct took over. He told her he was leaving. That didn't stop her. To get away you had to jump. He was all set. She may have seen the fear in his eyes. She may have known that he wasn't going to give up quickly. No matter what the reason was, she just gave up. She didn't take him somewhere she didn't know. She drove him home instead. In his autobiography Sonny Boy, written many years later, Pacino said that growing up in the South Bronx had made him ready for times like these. He learned early on how to stay. He was saved that night by his feelings. He faced something even more dangerous in 2020, almost 50 years after the event. The world was hit by COVID-19 and Pacino was sick. He was really hurt by the bug. Fever, thirst, and then nothing. Suddenly he passed out, his heart stopped beating. He wasn't there for a few scary minutes. The paramedics showed up in full safety gear. 6 of them worked to bring him back along with 2 doctors. When he finally woke up, he saw people all around him wearing medical gear from head to toe. He later said that they looked like they were in a science fiction movie, but what he had just been through felt more real. People who make it through these kinds of close calls often say they saw a bright light or felt someone there. Pacino didn't feel any of that. He said it was like a void. You're here. You're not. You don't even remember anything. You don't have anything. He was changed by what happened. It made him think again about life, death, and what might happen after. He promised to take better care of himself and spend more time with his son Roman after he got better. But he knows that moment will always be with him no matter how much time goes by. Pacino was already fighting something that wouldn't let him rest a long time before either of these near-death events. He had had trouble sleeping for most of his life. It was hard for him to sleep for decades. His thoughts kept going fast. He was lost in his thoughts some nights and couldn't fall. Some nights being tired won. He was always tired though, and it was hard for him to fall asleep. By the time he became a big star, not getting enough sleep was making his daily life harder. He was usually wide awake until dawn, which tired him during the day. All of the effects built up over time. Mood changes, memory loss, moments when being tired made things less clear. He even said that when he was at his worst he had dreams. Insomnia, a psychological movie directed by Christopher Nolan that came out in 2002, he played a detective who wasn't getting enough sleep. He wasn't just playing in the part. For nights on end he knew what it was like to lie awake and feel his thoughts drift off. Having trouble with money made things worse. At one point a dishonest accountant cost him a lot of money. The stress about money made his sleepless nights even worse. The battle never really stopped even when he found ways to deal with it. He was used to having trouble sleeping, but it was still one of the hardest things he had to deal with in his life. It was a fight that no one could see. Al Pacino is one of the most recognized stars in Hollywood and has been for decades. And with fame comes attention. Some of his job decisions and personal relationships have also caused a lot of trouble. When he appeared in the movie Cruising in 1980, it quickly became a major source of protest. It was one of the most talked about parts of his career. The movie, which was directed by William Friedkin, showed Pacino as a cop who went undercover in a New York City gay club to catch a serial killer. It looked like it would make a great crime story on paper. In fact, it caused an uproar. LGBTQ+ activists didn't wait for the movie to come out to speak out against it because they thought it would reinforce negative stereotypes. During shooting, there were protests and people showed up to filming sites almost every day. They chanted, waved signs, and made loud noises during takes to make it clear that they wouldn't let this movie show their town in a bad way. When Cruising came out in cinemas, there was just as much anger. Some people said it was cruel. Different people had different reactions, and a lot of them thought it made the LGBTQ+ group look bad instead of showing who they are. Even Pacino later said he felt bad about making the movie. In his autobiography Sonny Boy, he wrote that after seeing how the movie turned out, he gave his whole paycheck to charity without giving his name. He had hoped to push himself as a performer, but instead he became the heart of a dispute that would not go away. A few years later, Pacino's personal life was the subject of another heated debate. His connection with Noor Alfallah, a woman 54 years younger than him, caused a lot. In June 2023, they had a boy together named Roman Alfallah Pacino. However, by October 2024, they were no longer dating. She wasn't gone from his life, though. To the contrary, she stayed very close to him. It's not just their child. Alfallah had a history of meeting older rich men like Mick Jagger and Clint Eastwood, which made people wonder what she was up to. Pacino's friends were afraid that she might be using him to make money. There was some truth to their worries. According to court records, Pacino was told to pay $30,000 a month in child support, as well as $110,000 up front and other costs such as $13,000 for a night nurse. Besides that, he had to put $15,000 a year into a college fund for their son. Even after they broke up, Alfallah continued to live a fancy life which was clearly paid for by Pacino. At the same time, she was seen with other famous guys like Comic Bill Maher. It was said that this made Pacino feel cheated, but that didn't change the fact that he still gave her money. Friends said he was deeply in love with her and thought he might even leave her a big chunk of his money. At first glance, this seemed like a case of love making people less smart. Others saw it as a story that showed how relationships can go wrong when power is imbalanced. Nobody knew the truth, but Pacino's dedication to Alfallah, despite the warnings and rumors, kept people talking. One thing was clear: Al Pacino was still in the news at this point in his life, whether he was being ripped off or just choosing to support the mother of his kid.